We're going to go two quick ones because you won't have to say much for these, and then we'll go back to
Yes.
the line. How long did it take you from first reading the Quran to when you became a Muslim?
It took me a while. Not really all that long. It took me from the time I got done reading the Quran to the time I became a Muslim. Boy, it's so long ago, 19 years. But from the time I got done, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yeah, about 3 or 4 weeks.
All right. And what was the last thing you thought about before deciding to convert?
Really?
Or accept Islam?
Oh, wow. What was the last thing I thought about before? I don't know. Well, I know. Let me just say, let me just say this. What essentially happened was I was done with the Quran. I was not, my study of the Quran really just sort of began as an intellectual curiosity, a rational endeavor. As I read through the Quran, I didn't tell anybody this last night because these are not the type of things that are going to help anybody. And I don't think this helps people in their search for God. And so I haven't mentioned it. I mean, my own personal experiences. I could talk about what I went through with reason, but I don't want to tell people what I experienced on a spiritual level. Because I can't communicate that to you. You have to sort of either go through it yourself or what. It's not something that we could reason about. But in any case, my study of the Quran, as you might have observed yesterday, began as a rational endeavor. But as I read through it, I slowly but surely began to take on certain spiritual dimensions. As I read through the Quran, the further I got through it, the greater I began to doubt my atheism. And the more I started to doubt atheism, the more open I became to the possibility of God's existence. And the more open I came to the more open I came to the possibility of God's existence, the more I found that the passages in the Quran started to move me in very powerful ways. I mean, there were times when I would read the Quran and I would just feel this tremendous presence, spiritual presence about me. There were times when I would be reading the Quran and I'd be moved to tears. And I would cry. I remember after I read the surah that was first recited here today, I cried like a baby for a half hour. And I don't know what happened. I don't even know where those tears came from. They just poured out of me for a good half hour. I just sat kneeling on the floor with my head near to the ground, and the tears just came gushing out of me. It was like I was just letting go. So much pain, and so much hurt, so much anger, so much suffering. It just came out of me. There were times when I read the Quran that I just felt that I was in the presence of this tremendous power and mercy. And the more I got through the Quran, the more I began to doubt my atheism, the more powerful those experiences became. And so, and when they kind of first would start happening, I try to shake them off. Because they never came when I wanted them to come. They just sort of came, unanticipated. And at first I did shake them off. I just blew them off. I said, it must be something psychological going on here. And by the time I finished the Quran, I had these experiences. I had them repeatedly. They were powerful. They were unanticipated. They were recognizable. But I just left them aside. Tried to ignore them. And then in those 3 or 4 weeks that passed, and I know this is not a rational explanation, it's not going to help anybody here, but in those 3 or 4 weeks that passed after that, when I wasn't reading the Quran anymore, I started to feel a loneliness and a kind of longing. I missed that voice that spoke to me through the Quran. I missed the experience. I felt I had lost. I felt a great sense of loss and isolation. And, as time went on, I missed it more and more as the weeks went past. I was tortured by it. And at some point, I realized that there's just no point in denying it anymore. You know, the Quran had awakened in me a spirituality that I thought I never had. And through that spirituality, it spoke to me. It spoke to me a part of me that I never thought I had. And as the weeks went by and I missed that voice and I missed that experience, I came to finally realize that what I missed was God. And I know that's sounds like a big leap, but once you're moved by that and touched by that, and you have that experience, you know, you just know it. There's no point in denying it anymore. And so, you know, maybe I had to get all that rational baggage out of the way. Maybe I just had to open the door a little bit of the possibility, entertain the possibility of God's existence. But once I did, I had some very powerful, moving, spiritual, quote-unquote, spiritual experiences. And it reached into a part of me that I didn't know was there. And so on November 8th, 1982, I went over to talk to the Muslim students of the University of San Francisco, because they had a mosque in their basement there. Basement of the church had a little mosque, a little prayer room. And I went down there telling myself I was going to only ask a few questions, that I definitely wasn't going to become a Muslim. But I went down there just to talk to them, to just talk with somebody about what I had been through. And I went down there, and a half hour later I came out a Muslim. And so at that point, it seemed like it happened without my even wanting it to. You know, so I could give you I could try to rationalize my conversion to Islam. I could rationalize how I overcame my rational objections. I could rationalize about how I developed questions about the author. But I honestly, and I apologize for this, I cannot rationalize how I became a Muslim. What finally made me need that so badly. You know, I wrote in one book of mine that, and maybe this is the best way to say it, that the nearest and truest answer I could really give you, when all is said and done, is just this: that at one special moment of my life, a moment that I never could have conceived when I was younger, I think God in His infinite kindness and wisdom just had mercy on me. And I don't know why. You know, maybe He just saw in me a pain so deep, an emptiness so vast, a longing so great. I really don't know why. But maybe He just saw in me a readiness. But